and I was on a bike ride and going opposite direction of the green beacon, and then I realized I had something to do at noon. What was it? And I'm like, no, the podcast. Hey, everybody. I am here at the Green Beacon again, and it's Friday. We're recording this on a Friday because it's the only day that was available. Amber is not with me today because she's actually right across the street working, officially working, I might add, because this week she passed her state certification as an official licensed, whatever they call the people that do nails, something technician, mortician, technician. Well, anyway, I don't know what it is, but so good job, Amber. Good job. Hey, man, how are ya? Yeah, look who's here. Uh, Guest appearance, a man from Man's Group last week. I won't say your name for privacy purposes, but it's good to see you. Um, oh, hey, I got my helmet here because I actually forgot about this, and I was on a bike ride and going opposite direction of the green beacon, and then I realized I had something to do at noon. What was it? And I'm like, no, the podcast. So I turned around and came straight here. I haven't even changed my gym shirt, other than I put pants on because I was on the bike. But yeah, so that's actually a sign of something, I think, because my bike hasn't been started. That Harley's been sitting in the shed next to the lawnmower for over a year. It's been over a year since I even started that bike, and it was dirty and dusty, and there was stuff. The kids had used it to hang stuff on it, and I just didn't care. And I don't know if I was depressed or if I just didn't have the energy with everything happening with the church, but I just didn't have it in me to even devote any level of energy towards the bike. And so, yeah, in a few days earlier this week, I just felt like I just had this surge of energy and maybe hope, even actually. And I put the battery tender on there. I let it charge for about 2 days. Yesterday was the first day where I actually fired her up and she started, sounded, blah, 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 blah. I mean, it was awesome. And then after that, I went on a ride. Then I came back and I cleaned it and I shined it up. And it looks like a brand new bike right now. And as I cleaned it, I backed it up into the shed. And as I backed it up into the shed, it started just pouring rain. And I just felt like I was winning at life because earlier that day I mowed the lawn. So talk about timing. Anyway, so yeah, so the bike's back. The desire to ride is back. And maybe that's a sign of health, given the fact that I have to report some pretty hard things, I think. So I don't, this isn't rehearsed. I haven't even had a moment to collect my thoughts. Like I said, I even forgot this was happening until about a half hour ago. But I don't know if you guys know this, but I am accountable to a board. And Amber and I met with them this week on Wednesday. Pastor Amy is on that board. Pastor Nick Shabrinsky is on that board. Pastor Buck is on that board. So anyway, so I'm surrounded by people that do what I do for a living, except they do it better and they've been doing it longer, right? And they're in tune with they've been watching not the podcast, but the services. The last services that we had, and they had a caution for me, and I appreciate them watching that blind spot. And the caution was that I was given an unclear, dualistic message, or a mixed message that was basically saying, I need rest. I'm burnt out. I don't have the energy to be able to really continue to pastor you, in a service. But I'm going to start something new, and I'm going to be doing a podcast. So, to them, what they were saying to me, it's like it sounds like on one side of the mouth, you're saying you need to quit some things, and on the other side of your mouth, what you're actually saying is I'm going to start something new. And I totally get that. I can see the duality there in that. in me sharing that, and I guess it came from a place of me not wanting to isolate, and also really appreciate the way that we have all the friendships that we've had, all the friendships and the people that are around us. And to me, it was a way to stay connected. But what they were telling me is, you're going to be performing because it's in you. You're going to want to minister. You're going to want to pray for people. You're going to want to be able to prepare content ahead of time. And you're actually just doing another service. That's what they were saying to me. Um, so, what am I saying? I'm saying that maybe the podcast, it's not the way to go, and I think I'm going to have to let that go. They validated me and Amber's call to ministry. They were really encouraging. They were really excited for us. Actually, they were like, You're going to come out on the other side of this, and it's going to be much, much better." And so good. So they were really, really encouraging. But they were like, "But the only way that's going to happen is if you're true to your word, and you can't quit something and then start something else and say that you're too tired, And I think me even not wanting to ride that motorcycle was even evidence of just the level of emotional drainage that I was experiencing. Like, the bike just happened yesterday. Like, this is like on time, Um, so yeah, they advised me to do nothing for 90 days and then to re-engage with them to see about opportunity for work, because I'm gonna have to get a job somewhere because daddy likes to eat. And we're borderline Amish and we have 4 kids, and so gotta provide. So anyway, so that's happening. So we're not going to be doing the podcast. Thank you guys so much. Many of you tuned in last week, and it was really encouraging. I just felt like it was the right thing. Something that I'm learning in my process is to also trust my wife's intuition. And my wife was never really on board about the podcast. So when they were like, when the board was like, "Yeah, you shouldn't do this," she was like, "Uh-huh." He was right. Ah. I have learned that in marriage, that most marriages end because of 2 things. Number one, a man's inability to listen. And number two, a man's inability to maintain a healthy emotional life. And I'm still struggling to listen to my wife's intuition and to partner with her. And I think that's part of our ministerial struggle, that there's still some glitches there that we have to iron out to make sure that we're healthy, to make sure that we're whole, to make sure that we're together. And yeah, it's I gotta do better, and I believe we can. So the one thing that I feel like, and I have to confirm this with my wife, right? But the one thing that I believe I do want to continue is the reach groups. Um, Partly because I don't see that as a connection to the church, at least for me personally. First of all, if some people still want to stay connected, for us to be able to provide some structure so that connection can happen, to me, that's a beautiful thing. That should be happening anyway. But for me personally, what a reach group is, it's not as much attached to the church as it is attached to me, because I have made some grave mistakes. And one of my terms, one of the things that I've been learning is that you should not allow your feelings to govern, or your emotions to govern your actions. That your actions need to be governed by your terms as you are as a person. And for me, one of my personal terms is that I am a man who makes a difference in other men's lives. Um, and I don't even feel like I have to be in a good place for that to happen. That's just a term, you know. You can learn from my strengths. You can learn from my, my life history. You can learn from my mistakes. Even if I'm doing poorly, I'll be trying to show up honest, and maybe in that level of honesty, we can still learn. And we had our first reach group last night, actually, and it was, I believe it to be heavenly. Um, It was fantastic. It was to me, and again, I have to confirm these things with my wife because for me, it just felt like the confirmation that I still need to be in whatever process I'm in, true to the terms that I live by. Sometimes I drop the ball, and those terms don't get met, and I'm working on that, you know. But I think that's part of this sabbatical. And the board was really gracious. They were, man. They were like, listen, most people in your position don't do this. They do. They just continue to move forward until their families wrecked or until their kids are ignored and out of the church, you know. And I'm like, don't give me credit. That's what I've been doing. My wife's been calling for this for like 2 years, and I have what? An inability to listen. What? So, ah, am I messing up your equipment, Tony? I shouldn't do that again. Okay. Um, so yeah, I think the reach groups, at least up until this point, should continue, um, even if the podcast stops, because there was this guy that came in yesterday, and his wife is separated from him, you know, and I can tell that he was really hopeless. And by the time he left, he was like taking notes, and he's like, "Let me get my phone," and and I can tell that by the time he left hopeful. There was definitely a different frequency as to the energy that he carried. That was totally opposite from the one where he came in, from the one when he left. So, um, yeah. So even if the podcast doesn't happen, they're like, you should. Our church is small enough that we can get information out to all the key leaders through text. So I don't feel like if we have to convey something that it's that difficult. Um, what else did they talk about? Oh, that the board asked if there was money in the church fund. And I said yes. There's about 15,000 in there, and they're recommending that I take some of that for income during that interim time in which I am supposed to do nothing, which is really hard for me to do nothing. I'm not sure I can, and I'm not sure that I can do it for as long as they're asking me. 90 days, that's a lot, and I don't want to just. I'm looking for a job. Anyway, feel free to comment anything you want. I'll listen to it because I mean I don't even know if the content is good of what I'm sharing. I'm just reporting, but I do know this: Tony runs a pretty nice podcast, and it's good to listen. I loved it yesterday. So even if the content of what I'm saying sucks, which I don't know how it's coming across, it'll be good to listen to simply because it's framed well within a well-oiled quality machine. So we're not paying that kid enough, but we are paying him. So know that, okay? So um, let me see. I think that's all I had to share. Felipe, anything? Any questions, thoughts, comments? You're a smart guy.
I think we'll get through this weather storm. Calm storm.
He said we'll get through this. With your big sexy beard, look at you. Tony, anything? You're a smart guy too. You've been part of our process.
I think you take the word of your board, those you have authority under, and really take heed to it, and continue doing what you're
relationship with God, develop that relationship with your family and your wife foremost. And like the board said, you'll come out of this a totally different person, a better pastor, an all-around better leader for not just your family, not just the church, but the people that you're going to come in contact with in the future. So I respect you for doing what you're doing and being transparent enough to do it, even if it took 2 years for you to get to this point. But I always believe it's better late than never, and as long as you're still breathing, there's an opportunity to, change and grow.
Thanks, man. I can't believe you're able to be that honest, that insightful, and that vulnerable while my right nipple was showing the whole time. Why didn't somebody tell me? Come on.
I did not see that.
Thank you, Tony. Love you, sir. Okay, I think we've spoken long enough. Most of you who are watching this podcast also have my phone number. So if you want to reach out or text or call, and I'm not going to China. I'm just not doing a service and not going to be in the public as much. Will I contemplate some of the great things that God has led me into and some of the grave mistakes that I've made along the way to make sure that my calling gets the person it deserves. And Amber, our calling gets the people it deserves.